Hi, welcome to Bad Music Taste and Other Ways to Ruin Your Life. My name is Dominic.
And my name is Sam. Dominic has a record this week.
This week's record is Born Innocent by Red Cross. This record was first released in 1982, and the copy I have here is a first pressing on black vinyl. But anyways, today we're talking to Kira Roessler from Black Flag, Dose, and many more. How's it going, Kira?
It's going well, thank you, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for doing it. You have a new solo record coming out October 19th. Was this something you had always wanted to do, and how did it finally come about?
Actually, no, it's not something I always wanted to do. I never wanted to do it. I have been working on my own music in my room, building songs, messing around. I mean, this is what I do for enjoyment, right? I create songs, but there was never any real intention to release a record. My brother Paul works at Kitten Robot Studios, and we've done a lot of work there on these songs of mine, and they now have a record label. So he came to me this year and said, they want to put out a solo record. And for whatever reason, I turned 60 this year, maybe that. I thought it would be kind of fun to release my first solo record at 60. So these songs were the farthest along and had a little bit of a story. So I decided to tie a bow around it and put it out on Kitten Robot Records.
Yeah, while looking some stuff up, I saw that you had some songs on YouTube, like Peas, and songs like that. Were these from like the same recording session or stuff like that?
Well, not necessarily session, because for me, every day is a recording session. I have a setup in my house here, and I usually have about 20 songs in process in various states of completion or beginning or whatever. So anytime I sit down, I sort of look at that list and say, okay, maybe I'll work on that, or maybe I have a new idea. So there's sort of always been songs, but those songs did take a similar path, started in my room, and then I send them to, I have sort of virtual band, right? I send to a guitar player in Ohio or a drummer across town that I'm not usually in the same room with, and they add cool parts. And then, I go to Kitten Robot Studio and we polish them a little. So that material, sort of took the same process and the same flow, but didn't necessarily fit as well into this particular release.
So as far as the process for your songs go, what is the writing portion of it like? As you were saying, since you have a lot going at once.
Well, yeah, usually I have a word or a phrase or a feeling, and it starts as simply with that, and then I sit down with my bass, because that's always been how I express myself, right? So I grab my bass, and then I try to find a way to have my bass do whatever that word or phrase or emotion is. I try to start capturing it and expressing it through my bass. And since I've been playing since I was 14, it feels like part of me. It feels like my voice in a way. And so I start to put little pieces together, and partially because I work a straight job for a living, I sometimes only have a half hour, right? So I do a little work on it, and then I put it away, and then I come back to it another day, so that's part of what started things being, like this, where I don't sit down and complete a song, any given day. A lot of times it's a half hour, do a little work and then walk away and then come back. So the process usually starts with the bass line, and I format it into somewhat of a song format, and then the words almost all the time come afterwards. Once in a while I might have a feeling and just start spewing out words and then write the bass line, but the words always have to be sort of formatted to the bass line, the song, as it starts to become musical. So then I might sing a little, and then I'll do another bass line usually, because that's kind of my thing. So the singing will come either after the first bass line or the second bass line. And then, like I said, I might get some more little tidbits from my close friends to help complete it. But I like a lot of space. I like a lot of holes. So you won't find this music to be a wall of sound like some music is, but that's kind of how I like it.
Yeah, going back just a little bit, when you said a solo record wasn't something you had always wanted to do, did you have to be like talked into making this record?
Um, I'm not really talked into it. For whatever reason, they asked at the right time, I guess is the best way I can say it. It's certainly something my brother and I have talked about over the years, because he has been known to tie a bow around things and to put things out into the universe. And I've said, I don't really need feedback from everybody. I don't really want to know what they think about my really weird music. I don't really expect people to enjoy this weird music necessarily. So there's a part of me, I think, that just felt not self-conscious, but just like didn't want to hear people's criticisms of it, to be honest. And it wasn't that important to me to get, reactions, but for whatever reason, when he asked me this time, and they were offering to actually, put a record out and do some promotion, which we're doing, it just, for whatever reason, it was like, well, that's kind of a cool idea to do it now. I don't know why I'm doing it.
Were the songs already recorded, or when he approached you, then you have to record the songs?
No, the songs, like I said, there've been a lot of songs, and this set of songs, the earliest, it sort of is a story that happens chronologically. So the first song was probably recorded about 13 years ago, the basic parts of the basic tracks, and then over the years, different songs, and then some of the last songs, the end of the story, if you will, we worked on this year to finish up and sort of polish the last few things. So it's been a somewhat of a constant thing, but has gone back for many years. And like I said, there's always stuff in process in my life.
And well, with the new record coming out and COVID vaccines being distributed, do you plan on like playing shows or maybe like touring for the record?
I've been being asked this often. I'm definitely not going on tour. I don't miss touring, and touring is, it's not for the faint at heart. You playing live for people is so enjoyable, but it's a very small part of what happens on tour. If you think about it, right? It's like maybe you're on stage for an hour and the rest of the 24 hours can be very unpleasant. You know what I'm saying? So no, I'm not going to go on tour, and I haven't played live in years. But I will just say this: I'm trying to find a way to do some sort of event, to capture some kind of live thing and maybe share it with people. I am kind of interested in doing that. I don't feel negatively about sharing a live thing with people. I'm just not sure how it's going to happen yet, but so I don't know is the short answer.
So, on the topic of the record, are there any plans for vinyl release for it?
I'm glad you asked that. The deal with vinyl, and of course I did want to release it on vinyl. I gather that whether it's because of the pandemic or whatever, vinyl is kind of backed up. So it wasn't going to happen sort of in a timely fashion. So I was like, okay, I'll do the CD and the digital release. And then what they basically said was, well, if I sell a few records, they'll press vinyl. So we're hoping to press vinyl probably, early next year, if all goes as planned and people actually show interest in the record. It's definitely something we'd like to do. Yeah.
Yeah. We got the link. It is a wonderful record.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird though, you got to admit.
Oh yeah. I mean, you hear the bassist, like the former bassist from Black Flag made a solo record. You kind of expect it to be along those lines, it's very
Yeah.
like it's almost like jazzy, you know?
Yeah, we were talking earlier and we were like, well, it's definitely different than what we expected, but it's good different. There's
Yeah.
definitely like there's a difference in genre, but it's really good.
Well, the funny thing is, back in the old days, punk rock was about being different. It was not about being loud or fast or whatever. So my idea is that my music has always been really punk rock. Dose is not like anything you've ever heard before either, right? So my idea is that I don't want to sound like everybody else, and that is my nonconformist punk rock background. I mean, I have played in a lot of bands, right? And bands are generally not democracies. There's usually the person or persons that are the songwriters, and they're kind of the bosses. And then there's the support team, and in Black Flag, I was the support team. I loved Black Flag. I loved doing it. I have no regrets, but it wasn't necessarily me getting to express myself. It was me being part of somebody else's vision, and doing that as hard as I could, but it wasn't necessarily my most creative time in my life. I've had other times when I've been the songwriter and been the person who was sort of, creating the band, and in those times I get to express myself a little more directly. So that's part of why you have this difference, and I think that's part of why I wasn't sure I wanted to do the solo record, because people know me from this context, and they would listen to this and say, well, that's yucky. We like Kira from Black Flag. We don't like, little quiet, pretty, sad songs that are a little jazzy, maybe. But it's funny that you bring up jazz, because I studied jazz bass when I first started. And what I found with playing with Mike and with doing two bass music is there has to be some interchange. There has to be some syncopation, right? You can't just both play on top of each other, And so it's natural that there's a sort of rhythmic give and take that we do hear more sometimes in jazz than in rock and roll.
Yeah, I come from a sort of jazzy family. Like my grandfather was a jazz drummer who played with like Chuck Mangione and
Cool.
people like that.
Yeah.
So going from like Black Flag to music like this it's just super cool to me, and I love the record. It's great.
Oh, I'm so glad. I hope other people share your enthusiasm.
Yeah, I mean, we totally agree. And I think the point you made earlier, like this, it's not that you were necessarily self-conscious, but just like putting almost a part of yourself out there that people hadn't seen, because like you said, they were so used to kind of like the Black Flag persona of you. And then you kind of let loose a little bit with like what you're into. And I think that's amazing. I mean, whether people like it or not, and we do, and it's really good.
Well, they are obviously very personal songs. I really like music where I really try to share, a moment in time of myself or a feeling that I'm having. And I really want, the truth is, when I listen to music, I only like it if I think they're feeling something. It's okay if it's anger or sadness or whatever. Like punk rock was really angry, and that's really cool. They're feeling that emotion, right? And so this tries to capture, the feelings that I've been having in this period of time, and it's super personal. So as you say, there is a sort of sharing of myself that you just don't know how other people will react to it.
Yeah, like when people hear like emo music, they think emo just means sadness. Emo means emotional, and anger is an emotion, and yeah.
So is joy.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
There's like a stereotype behind that kind of music, and it's like it can really branch out to like anything, whether it has the same sound or not. I can like, have the same instrumental on an angry and a happy song. Like it doesn't matter. It's just what the artist brings to it. And so like, yeah, like you said, when you hear an artist having an emotion and what they're talking about, it's a lot easier to make connections, whether like the person next to you might not make the same connection as you, but you still all feel something from the same thing.
Yeah, and feeling it, anything is what I want to do when I listen to music, right? I want to feel something, you know, and if they're not feeling anything, why should I care, you know?
Right.
Um, from what I've heard, you were a fan of Black Flag when you first joined. And taking Chuck Dukowski's place is like a huge spot to fill. Do you remember your initial reaction when you were asked to join? And what did fans think for those like few those first shows that you played with Black Flag?
Well, yes, I was a big fan. I think that I saw a gig at the Whiskey A Go Go in Hollywood with Henry as a frontman when Des was still playing guitar as well. So it was a 5-piece, and at that moment, they just became my favorite band. I had seen many iterations. I always liked them, but then it suddenly just clicked for me, and I thought Henry really captured the energy of the band really well in his lead singing and stuff. So fast forward a little time down the road, and I get a call from Henry saying, Chuck's out of the band. I was playing with Des in DC3, and we were practicing at the same place as Black Flag was, and he just said, you should stick around and jam with Bill and Greg afterwards. And I didn't really think much of it. I was like, okay, cool, and I stayed after. They didn't seem to know anything about it, which was a little uncomfortable, but they were up for it. So we jammed, and then they asked me to join. And of course, I was really excited, but I was kind of scared. I knew a lot about the Black Flag touring and the hardcore nature of the what would be asked of me, and it was a little scary. And I was 3 years into my degree at UCLA, and I was pretty committed to not quitting. So I said, look, I'm going to finish school, but I'll take quarters off, will you work around my schedule a little bit? And they agreed to. And so my reaction was, excitement. I loved them with Chuck. I love Chuck. Some of his songs are some of the best songs of the band, right? So there was never any feeling like, oh, I can do it better. There's never that. I just, took the task on to, be as physical and as, put myself into it as hard as I could. When I got the tattoo, I got it because for me, the bars sort of represented whatever you do it all the way. So I was like, that was what my approach was going to be. I knew that was their approach, and I was on board. That was one of the things I loved about them. They're sort of, giving it their all and putting everything behind it and touring and stuff. So as to how other people reacted, I think that the fans felt like as the music style changed a little bit, like, my War Side 2, which of course I didn't play on, but somehow I started getting sort of affiliated with the changing sound of Black Flag. And there were certainly people who didn't like the changing sound of Black Flag. So in some ways I represented, a change that was not a change for the better. And I had the shortest hair in the band. They started having longer hair. And, the truth is, like I said, I wasn't the songwriter. I wasn't the one deciding what Black Flag was doing, but I was associated with this transformation that was happening, which, to me makes them more interesting. They move, they change, they grow, they try things, they do instrumental stuff, they do slow songs, they do fast songs, to me that was natural, but it wasn't necessarily my idea. So there was, I think, a faction of people who weren't that into it. I don't think it was because I was a girl, and I don't think it was my playing. I think it was just that what often happens, right, is a record comes out like Damage and people just love it and they just want to sort of everything to stay exactly the same. And that's not what happens. Things, hopefully a band goes through transformation, and I got associated with that. And those people who wanted them to stay the same, may have blamed me and not liked me very much. But I think that there were new people who were new to it, who got into it and who sort of thought it was cool that we were doing instrumental stuff and thought it was cool that there was slower songs and faster songs. I mean, you can imagine how the fast songs sound after you've played this slow dirge, right? And then you transfer into something really fast. I mean, the energy just, so there was definitely both people who fell off and people who got into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely daunting for any band to kind of feel like wanting to change their sound. But I think the issue is if you're a true fan of like a band, then you're a fan of them. I think personally, like even more than just for their music specifically and their sound, but also for like what they stand for and what they represent. So if that band is going through a transitional period where they represent like growing and getting better, then whatever works for them, should be what is.
Oh, sure, but your taste is your taste. You can also say, you know what, I like the first record better than I like the second record, and that's fine. We all do that. We all prefers this kind of sound to that kind of sound, and so it wasn't a bad thing. But I think that just to try to answer your question, there was some people who were kind of down on me, but I think it had more to do with the changes in the band, and I certainly got a lot of positive feedback too.
Well, Kira, thank you so much for your time.
Of course. I'm so glad to do it. Are you sure you don't have any other questions?
Do you want to leave us with anything else? Anything else you want us to know?
Is there anything you want to add or?
Oh, now I'm on the spot. I guess I would just say that the record is a story of love and loss, and that I felt like those were feelings that we've all experienced and will experience, and I just tried to share that that part of me and that story, hoping that other people would feel something. So I appreciate so much that you guys felt something when you listened, and I really hope that the listeners check it out, and we'll see what happens. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. This is a lot of fun.
Thank
you. Take care of yourselves.
You too.
You too. Okay. Bye.
Bye.